Hello everyone, and welcome to your first Mandarin lesson. My name is Alex, and I'll be your teacher this semester. Before we start, are there any questions?
Will there be a lot of homework?
Well, I'll make sure you have plenty to practice after class. Anyone else? Yes? Yeah. What does Ching Chang Chong mean? Oh, it means you're racist. Moving on. Yes.
So, for our first lesson, are we going to learn about some really cool characters or like some basic sentences to survive in China?
Nope. Today you're going to relearn your ABCs and see how you have been using them the wrong way your whole life. So you've just had your first Mandarin lesson. It could be online, with a private tutor, or at your college. Whichever it is, I'm sure it was quite overwhelming. You either learned about pinyin, tones, characters, or a combination of all of the above. In this video, let's try to go through all that material and make sense of it. Before we start, I want to thank you for checking out my video, but also congratulate you for choosing to learn Mandarin. It's not always going to be easy, but with the right tools and guidance, you'll find yourself speaking it very well in no time. If you haven't done so yet, remember to subscribe so you never miss any of my videos. So learning a new language, especially one as complex as Mandarin, is a very exciting challenge. And whether you see yourself spending years learning it until you become completely fluent, or whether you only want to take a semester or two to learn the basics of the language, the first thing you'll want to learn is pronunciation. As complicated as Mandarin can be, its pronunciation is fairly simple. This is because there are very few combinations of sounds, so once you've learned how to produce the main sounds used in Chinese words, you'll be ready to go and won't have to learn any new sound. That is, unless you also want to learn one or more of the hundreds of dialects found across China. Let's start with an important piece of information. While many European languages, like English and French, are based on letters making up words, which leads to all kinds of sound combinations, Chinese is based on syllables, with almost no consonants next to each other. This means that where you'd have to eventually master thousands of letter and sound combinations for languages like English, there are only really a few hundred possibilities in Mandarin. Another advantage of learning Mandarin is how clear and simple its romanization system called Pinyin is. You always read it as it's written. This is quite different from languages like English that will often have words that are written and read in very different ways. I mean, let's take the time to ask ourselves why this is read as Wednesday, or this as Worcestershire, and then this one, Colonel. I could offer a lot more examples, but really what I want to say here is that it's not a problem that you will find in Mandarin, because the sounds are always very clear and standardized. Every Chinese syllable is built of two sections, an initial called shengmu and a final called yunmu. I promise you won't need to remember all their Chinese names, unless you're a huge nerd like me. Everything we will learn today will be written with Pinyin. Basically, Pinyin will take characters and convert them into a written system that is easy to read and learn. So this becomes this. See how it's a little easier to read? It also makes it much more easy to write it on a keyboard or to look up the pronunciation of a character. Now, once we've gone through Pinyin and learning how to write and read it, then we can move on to looking at actual Chinese characters. Another simple thing to remember is that except for one particular sound, all initials are consonants written with letters like B, P, and M, and almost all finals are vowel sounds written with letters like A or I. Now for this video, we will focus on initials. There are 21 initials similar to consonant sounds in English, and they can be divided into 7 categories based on where in the mouth the sound is produced. Now, you don't need to remember the names of the categories, but it is helpful to know which sounds are grouped together so that you do get a feel for how your mouth should be when you speak Mandarin. The first category is bilabial, and as the name implies, you use your 2 lips to make the sounds. These initials are B, P, and M and sound like this. B, P, M. Now, let's take a look at some examples. Ba, father. Ba, pa, afraid. Pa, ma, to curse. Ma, As you can see, when presenting examples, I will try to use words that have very similar sounds so that you can easily compare initials from the same categories. In this case, all three sounds ended with a, so you really want to focus on the first sounds. Ba, pa, ma. The biggest difference between B and P is that there should be much more air coming out when making the P sound. You can put your hand in front of your mouth and feel the difference. B. The P is aspirated, meaning that there's a strong burst of breath that accompanies the sound, whereas B is unaspirated, meaning it's a much more drier sound. Has anyone heard or learned words that start with this sound before?
Well, I know baba is father.
That's right. Baba uses the same character twice and the sound begins with B. Anyone else?
Oh, and I think I know something else. 800标兵奔北坡，炮兵并排北边跑。
Wow, yes, that was perfect. Yes, every word here uses either B or P to start the sound, and this is a great way to practice differentiating those two sounds. Good job. Show off. The second category is labiodental, a combination of lip and teeth, in this case the initial F, which sounds like this. Let's take a look at some examples. Fa, to send something. Fa and fu, rich. Fu. Does anyone know any words that start with f?
Oh, 父亲 is another way of saying father.
That's right. 父亲 starts with F. 父亲. Anyone else knows another word that starts with F? Yeah, I got one for you. All right, moving on. The next two groups are called alveolar, meaning that they are articulated with the tongue against or close to the superior alveolar ridge, which really means the tip of your tongue goes right around where the top of your upper teeth meets the roof of your mouth. There are two groups of alveolar initials based on where the sound is coming out. The first group includes Z, C, and S, and they sound like this. Z, Z, and S. The tip of your tongue should touch the back of your upper teeth, and your jaw should almost be closed for these sounds too. The upper and lower teeth are not touching, but they're quite close. Z is similar to the DS sound you get when you say hands. Z. C or ts sounds very close to the word let's. Let's. And S sounds like the S sound in sour. S. So we have Z, ts, and S. Here are some examples. 字, character. 字. 次, time. 次. And 四, for. 四. Once again, I'm using words that have the same final sound, and even the same dropping tone, so that you can really focus on the initials. 字, 次, 四. Here's an example of a short sentence that uses all three of these words, and therefore all three sounds. 第四个字是次, which means the fourth character is 次. 第四个字是次. Don't worry about understanding the meaning of the sentence, simply focus on the different sounds. The second group of alveolar initials is D, T, N, and L. The position of the tongue is pretty much the same as the previous group, but you'll want the tip of your tongue to be slightly more towards the back, just enough that it doesn't touch the back of your teeth. Let's look at the sounds they make. Let's start with D and T. D, T. The main difference between D and T is that T is aspirated, like P, so you push much more air out when making the sound T, as opposed to the sound for D, which is D. Then we have N and L, which make N and L. The main difference is that when you make the N sound, a lot of the air is coming out of your nose, so if I pinch my nose while trying to say N, nothing will come out. Whereas if I try to make the L sound, L, and I pinch my nose, the same thing comes out. L. Let's look at some examples together. 大 big, 大 他 him, 他 那 that, 那 la spicy, 辣
Oh, I know a way to practice the d sound.
Yes.
大刀对单刀，单刀对大刀，大刀斗单刀，单刀夺大刀。
How? The following group is the retroflex initials, meaning those where the tip of your tongue is curled up toward the hard palate. These are ZH, J, CH, Ch, SH, Sh, and R. R. Let's talk about how to make those sounds and look at some examples together. The ZH sound should vibrate in your throat, kind of like the J sound in jam, but you want to have your tongue even more in the back of your mouth. So as an example, 纸, paper, 纸. The CH sound should be made in the same way as ZH, but without any vibration, like ch in chocolate, but once again with the tongue pushed back in the mouth. As an example, 吃, eat, 吃. Now the SH sound is made with the same tongue position, but you don't want to press the tongue against the hard palate and have that explosive sound that you had with the other two sounds, zh and ch. This time it should be a sh sound, kind of like in shower, but more in the back of your mouth, like 是, to be, 是. The R sound is produced in the same way as sh, SH, but you want some vibration with your vocal cords, kind of like the S sound in television, television, and you want it further back, zh, like zh, day, zh.
Oh, sir.
Yes?
Can I do another one?
Fine. Which sounds does it practice?
ZH, zh, and SH, sh.
All right.
知道就说知道，不知道就说不知道，不要知道说不知道，也不要不知道说知道，你知道不知道？
The next group is called palatal initials, which means that we make the sound with the body of the tongue, so like the middle part, raised against the hard palate and put the tip of the tongue against the back of the lower teeth. The three letters part of this group are J, Q, and X, which make the following sounds: J, Ch, and X. These are quite different from any sound you would normally hear in English, and comparing them to sounds you already know could be pretty misleading, so you'll have to listen to a lot of examples to figure it out. Let's look at some right now. Ji, machine, ji, qi, 7, qi, xi, west, xi.
Oh.
Just do it.
京剧叫京剧，警句叫警句，京剧不能叫警句，警句不能叫京剧。
Okay, dude, what's your deal? This clearly isn't your first time learning Mandarin.
Oh yeah, no, I've been learning for over 10 years. I just like relearning the basics over and over to make sure I get everything right.
Wow, well, good for you, I guess. Weirdo. Finally, we have the velour initials, G, K, and H. These are made with the back part of the tongue against the soft palate, kind of like how we can make a G sound with the word get. Here we're talking about G, K, and H, so we have a G sound like get, a K sound like key, and a H sound like has. Let's look at some simple words. G, brother. G, 可 can, 可 和 with, 和. Now let me show you a quick tongue twister that uses both G and K, so G and K. 哥跨瓜筐过宽沟，赶快过沟，看怪狗，光看怪狗，瓜筐扣，瓜滚筐空，哥怪狗。Now, technically, there are two others, Y and W, but we'll talk more about them in the finals section. Okay, I think we all deserve a break here before we move on to part 2. So take the time to review everything, make sure you remember the initials and the sounds you'll need to make, and I'll see you soon for part 2. Bye.